I was asked recently to do some videos about developing scenarios and where do the ideas for scenarios come from, and ideas for scenarios, if I haven't got something that instantly goes into my head, I tend to get from charts and tables that I've written over a long period of time. But then I began to think, what is a scenario? And a scenario is just what we grown-ups call a game to play. When I went out in the morning, a nice sunny day like today, I didn't go out after breakfast thinking, I wonder what scenario we shall reenact today with the gang. I went out to play a game. My mum phoned me quite a while ago now, 10 years or so, and she'd bumped into a girl that I used to go to primary school with, so that's up to the age of 11, and I'd not seen her since we were 11, and we'd be in our late 50s, early 60s by then. And she said, oh yeah, of course I remember Galen. Yeah, the main things I remember about him was always talking about Doctor Who and playing with toy soldiers. And my mum had said to her, yeah, that's exactly what he's like now at 65. No change there then. So then that prompted me to think, okay, I think the first scenario I can remember playing was based on a Doctor Who series of episodes from 1965 called, if I'm not mistaken, The Web Planet. And there were these creatures that looked very much like, they looked a bit like wasps. There were moths. Terrified me. They were awful things. I've watched it back recently on YouTube. It's just blokes in stripy pyjamas with unrealistic fairy wings that children might wear to a party. But it wasn't the point. You suspended belief. And we used to play the game. So, like at school, we said, okay, the girls' toilets, bear with me, the girls' toilets is that's their planet. No one's allowed in there. So if the girls can get to the toilets, they are safe. It's a game of tig, really. And we chaps, we were the mothy wasp bad dudes who were trying to capture them. So in a way, that was a scenario. Now that's led me to think, what is it about our childhoods, the older players, that have given us a wealth of opportunity to develop imagination and scenario building that perhaps, and I'm not being rude here, honestly, very much younger players haven't got. And I'm speaking as a teacher, as a scout leader, as a parent. When I was a kid, when I was a child, there was nothing to do if you didn't make it happen yourself. The television wasn't on. There were only 3 channels eventually. There were only 2 channels for a long time. And they weren't children's channels. There was a sort of Watch with Mother, it was called, and that was for the very young. But there wasn't a lot for sort of burgeoning youths, if you don't mind me getting all poetic, until the summer holidays, which I'll come on to in a minute. And at a certain time of day, television went off. There was just nothing on. And that's even when my children, who are now in their late 30s, early 40s, were born. When you got up at night to give them feeds, there was nothing on. There was nothing on the radio. The radio went off at midnight. Click, gone. Television, national anthem, little white dot, gone. We got Dandy and Beano There's not a lot of role play. Dante Pino, Black Bob, the sheepdog rescuing people. But you see, Black Bob, you had to read it. It was proper writing. It wasn't pictures. So that was Joe 90. That was quite good. He was a spy. I like Joe 90. But the television was so open in its character creation and in its delivery that it left you space to build your own story. So, for example, you Saturday morning or through the summer holidays, and it happened year after year, these things were repeated. There were a number of things from the continent which made them quite mysterious and exotic. There are three that absolutely, for various reasons, fed into my fantasy. One of them is called White Horses. Go on YouTube and look at White Horses from the 1960s. It's Yugoslavian co-production, and it's dubbed. And it's all about the Lipizzaner and the horses. Now, that was really for the girls. That was for the ladies, like Baby Sham at Christmas or a snowball. That was what it was like in the 60s. Get a milk stout for your grandma. She wants an easy iron. But then, straight after, they're only about 20-30 minutes, these things. So you'll not be dedicating a lot of time to this if you do it properly. Find The Flashing Blade. The Flashing Blade is set in 1630. Ignore the acting. Ignore the special effects. But think about character development. The hero in that, the French hero, is a fantastic character to model Dungeons and Dragons hero on. He is so Errol Flynn and Douglas Fairbanks. He's mad as a hatter. He's great. And he's always laughing and dancing about with his little servant when they blow up Spanish gun positions. But it's a historic, it's French castle under siege. They've got about 150 men left, running out of ammunition, running out of food, 6,000 Spaniards. There's a big deal going on with the Vatican, which is going to create a peace treaty, which the Spanish don't want because they want to capture the border fortress before this deal, and they're under pressure. And it's, a lot of political intrigue going on, which you could take little snippets out of and write it into your tables. So it's worth looking at. Third one, Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe, about the same period, well, it is the same period. Robinson Crusoe was played by a guy called Robert Hoffman, and it's brilliant because it's just Robinson Crusoe on an island. He acts, but the narration is in his head. He's just talking. What I've got to find food. I've got to find water. Now what do I do? And you learn some of his backstory. But the problems he has to solve are very interesting, and the way he solves them are very interesting. So I would recommend those three. I'll just have a look. It's an hour and a half, and you'll have seen enough. Probably never want to see him ever again. But we could come out of the house after watching those with all manner of ideas. We could play Flashing Blade, and you didn't need fancy kit. You didn't need an expensive PlayStation and an expensive game, The Flashing Blade. You didn't have to keep waiting for people to change the editions or bring out new dice, go and get different figures. Miniature figurines in 1972 was the only fantasy range that we in Doncaster, I don't know about anywhere else, could buy. There was no 3D printing, there were no computers, there was no shops that sold Wargames figures, there was nothing. So when we saw something, we went crazy. I can't get you to understand that if you don't understand it. If you understand it, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't understand it, no amount of talking from me is going to make that sink into your head. The only thing that would make that sink into your head is if there was some mega stunning economic collapse across the world, and all AI and computers stopped working, and you had to go back to square one. You had to make your own figures by drawing them on bits of paper and getting them to stand up by gluing them to matchboxes. That's where we were, painting coloured blocks of wood that your dad had cut things off in the shed and using them to represent units. I've got on a high horse, haven't I? Yeah, it might be one of them white horses. You should be thankful I'm not singing the theme tunes, that's all I'm going to say to you. But the other programmes did the same thing, and I would recommend these as well. Arthur of the Britons, Oliver Tobias, Brian Blessed as the King of Cornwall. It's groundbreaking. Now, it wasn't on one of these repeated, dubbed foreign imports that were on that was like tea time. Great stories, great visuals, because they showed Britain in the Dark Ages. People before that had all been shiny knights in armour. Even what we would now consider and dismiss as funny cartoons, Noggin the Nog. Listen to the narrator of Noggin the Nog. Just listen to how he tells that story. That teaches you how to tell stories. We were wolf cubs. We weren't Cub Scouts like they are now. We were wolf cubs, and we were proud to be wolf cubs. And we learnt to cook over open fires, and we went camping, and we climbed trees. And so when we watched Robinson Crusoe and he climbs a tree to escape the wild animals, or as a lookout, we knew what it was like to climb a tree because we did it. And now, as dungeon masters, we know. In the last dungeon I've played, there has been more than one young character falling out of a tree and being killed. Coincidence? I don't know, might be. Bad dice throws, probably. But if you've climbed a tree, you know how dirty and grimy and full of bugs they are and the smells. If you've never climbed a tree, you're imagining it. It's better to have done it. If you've not drunk water out of a stream on a moor, you don't know what it's like. We used to go wild camping. We didn't take tents and things. We just used to go, set off. See you tomorrow, Mum. And we'd go and we'd find a wood or a copse or some quiet bit, and we just got to sleep when we were tired. Have a little fire, put some stones round it. Whenever you went in it wasn't really a wood. It was called a long plantation, but it was just like, I suppose it was like a windbreak, really, like a path with a few trees either side. When you went in there were always fires that people had had. And if you were playing Robinson Crusoe, you'd test the ashes. Are they warm? You'd be looking for animal tracks. You'd only find dogs, but, we were optimistic. I had my stick, which, for the purposes of today's adventure, is Excalibur. There were programs like Jack and Horry, where they told us stories. Grown-ups told us stories, and we had to imagine them. We had a teacher, Mrs. Lee, and she used to tell a story every evening just before you went home. You had to put your head on your desk and shut your eyes and listen while she told this story. Silver Sword, I remember her reading. I was gutted because she hadn't finished it when the term ended, and I never got round to reading it to find out how it ended. And I was right into that. My little brother, my middle brother now, that's where he came across The Hobbit, and that's how I came across The Hobbit. People told you things, but there were adventures to be had. We were inspired. You could watch something on the TV. It didn't fill in all the gaps for you, but you could come away thinking things. I'm going to tell you the final bit of this. I thought this morning, before I came on to make the video, I would watch the first episode of the least likely to generate scenarios in Dungeons and Dragons of those 3 programs: Flashing Blade, White Horses, Robinson Crusoe. And I went for White Horses. Oh, I'm going to have to mention quick Belle and Sebastian. Belle and Sebastian is about a little kid and a big white dog. But the thing about Belle and Sebastian is the music at the beginning is quite odd. It's almost a bit Cocteau Twins. And remember, we were like 8, 9 years old, and they were singing French, and it was a style that we weren't used to. It felt ethereal and strange just because of the music, and it stuck in your head. White Horses. First episode of White Horses. It starts off with 2 travellers, and they're trying to sell some wicker baskets they've made. Actually, it doesn't. It starts off with this girl coming back from learning English. She comes back home to Spain. But very quickly, these 2 travellers appear. They've got a rickety old wagon and an old horse, and nobody will buy their baskets, and their wagons fall into pieces. Suddenly, cut to another story, one of the White Horse Lipizzaner stallions, there's the lady horse over there, he thinks to himself, and he's gone. Like a rat up a drain pipe, this horse. Wallop, jumps fences. My first thought this morning was unicorn. That white horse, what a great looking unicorn that would be. Then, the horse that the travellers are using breaks free because it's the lady horse that the white horse has had a hankering after, and it runs away. And then I'm thinking, what would happen if a unicorn mated with an ordinary horse? That might be interesting. And then the travellers decide what they're going to do is capture the white horse, paint it brown, as you would, stick it on their wagon, tootle off, let the white horse have a foal with their brown horse, and then they've got a free horse. And they've got a Lipizzaner horse that they've pinched, but by the by, they don't really have to worry about that. And I'm thinking, these 2 lads would make great comic characters. The wheel falls off their wagon, they paint this white horse, and it goes through a river, and all the paint comes off it. You know, it's bonkers what they do. They would make great, weird characteristics to go into a random encounter. Just imagine, I kept thinking to myself, they capture a unicorn for that story, but they don't think about the horn. So they've got a brown old nag and a beautiful white unicorn, and they're just riding along, expecting nobody to notice because they haven't got much upstairs. And I thought, yeah, I like that idea. And then another thing I saw, when they're washing the paint off the white horse, when they've got the horse back, it comes racing out of the waves. And a part of me thought, what if that's how unicorns are born? And they are born from the waves. As the waves crest, that white crest becomes the unicorn and breaks onto the shore as a unicorn. And perhaps there's some female deity within the particular area where the unicorns are appearing. I've never thought of that before. But so just that episode of White Horses, which is about some chaps trying to pinch a particularly excitable horse and doing it very badly, generates for me several potential scenarios. I'm not sure that that's what the people who were saying about how do you generate scenarios want. This is the groundwork. This is the field I'm ploughing and fertilising for the next bit. A lot of it is imagination. There's nothing's out of bounds in this game, and so utilise that. I've gone on too long. No one will watch this to the end. I don't know. but I wanted to say everything I wanted to say. I didn't want to do it in lots and lots of little dribbles, and I don't care. So, you know, ta-ra, Chuck. Get thinking.